Hey guys, do you want to know the easiest way to embroider on sashes? Stick around and I'll tell you how. And they're actually pretty easy to make once you figure out the right tools that you need to get the job done. So in today's episode, I'm going to tell you what tools you're going to need in order to embroider this effectively and to get it centered, because as we know, our hoops are either round or rectangular and they don't cover the entire area. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you how you can do this. But before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that if you have any questions at all throughout the video, to leave a comment below and we'll get back to you with an answer. And I also wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed so far. If you are new to our channel, welcome. If you have not subscribed yet, then I highly recommend clicking on subscribe. You will not regret it. All right, so on this side over here, we have the materials we're going to be using for today's project. And here we have two options of hooping. Now, this right here is our mighty hoop. Now this type of hoop is good for belts or belt-shaped items because the problem that arises with these items is that it is not the same size as the hoop. And what we learn in embroidery is that your hoop, in order to get good hooping tension and in order for you not to run into issues like your fabric moving up and down or your hoop being too loose or losing registration, anything like that, in order for you to avoid that, you're going to need to hoop your entire fabric in the hoop with your backing. Unfortunately, because of the size of this, there is no hoop really that you can hoop this with traditionally. So what you're going to need to do is take a few extra steps in order to make sure that we don't lose registration. And for those of you who are new here, loss of registration means when the material shifts around during the embroidery process and then your design becomes distorted or loses the center where it was placed. So with this scenario, I'm not going to show you what it'd be like with the tempered adhesive spray because we're actually going to, I don't want to ruin it because I'm about to embroider it and I'm actually going to use it with our regular hoops. So I can show you another way of doing it. If you don't have your mighty hoops, you can still use a regular hoop. We just have to take a few different steps. Now this of course would be the fastest way of hooping. Now if you're wondering about centering, you would just have to center manually. You would place a mark in the center of your fabric wherever you want your placement to be and then align your needle to that mark as you would normally do with any other item that if you don't have preset hoops on your machine or if you didn't center directly on your hoop. And then what I would actually do here is get some temporary adhesive spray to help flatten this and kind of adhere it to the backing so that it's easier for us to just snap the hoop in. And it, with the temporary adhesive spray, it would help flatten it out and it's a very easy hooping. All right, so the next method that I'm going to take is actually just floating. For those of you who don't know what that means, it's that I'm just going to hoop the stabilizer and then I'm going to place the fabric over the stabilizer afterward and adhere it with some temporary adhesive spray and some pins. Now some of you might be wondering, well, wouldn't that cause the material to shift and then you would lose registration, get gaps, or your design would just become distorted? Now the answer is yes, but if you use your adhesive spray and your pins correctly, like I'm going to show you, then you will not have any issues. So the good thing about this method, I'm going to go ahead and hoop this really quickly, but the great thing about this method is that my design actually has a running stitch where I'm going to place my fabric. So in this method is actually very easy because I'm going to treat it as if it were an applique. So I'm just going to mark the placement stitch on my backing and that will tell me exactly where I need to place my fabric and there's not going to be any centering involved. So this is very easy if you just have a few sashes to do and you don't have to go ahead and center them and mark the placement on all of them. You can just do it your design and the machine does all the work. So I'm just going to quickly hoop one sheet of stabilizer. It can be whatever stabilizer you choose. You can use tearaway or you can use cutaway. I'm going to go ahead and use cutaway because it is my preferred choice of backing and also because it's not going to show regardless because it is a sash. So I don't mind using the cutaway. However, if you do want to use tearaway, you can go ahead and use tearaway given that your design is not going to be too heavy or high stitch count, which it's probably not. If it's on a sash, it's probably just going to be some simple lettering, so you should be fine using your tearaway. So I've gone ahead and hooped my stabilizer, so now all I have to do is go ahead and take it over to the machine. Now, first off, let's talk about what we're gonna do to make this happen. As you see, I didn't mark any placement because I have it centered here already. And so it's gonna come out exactly how I want it because I created a running stitch in my design that is the placement stitch. It's gonna tell me exactly where to place my fabric, and it is exactly in the size of my sash. So it is 3.7 inches wide. Now the lettering is right in between both of the running stitches. So I know for sure it's going to be centered. So I can go ahead and just trace just to be safe. And I know it's not gonna hit. And then I can go ahead and press start and stitch my running stitch so you guys can see where we're gonna place our fabric. So now I'm gonna go ahead and offset the frame, and it's as simple as placing it. Now, of course, when I go ahead and place it, I'm gonna need to make sure that it is very secure on the hoop so that it doesn't move around, because we're not getting the tension or the pressure holding it down from the hoop. So we're gonna need to create that. So I'm gonna start with spraying some temporary adhesive spray freely. Don't forget to spray also on the sides right here. And I just like to cover up the needles when I'm doing that because that can go ahead and like gum up the needles. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and place it over, making sure that I'm smoothing it out so that there are no wrinkles. And make sure you're just doing that very carefully. As you can see, this is the exact size. That's obviously the trick to this. It has to be the exact size of your sash. Then you can go ahead and use maybe a very strong tape and tape it to the sides of the hoop, or you can use pins, whatever works for you. I'm gonna go ahead and use pins. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and push the frame back in, and I'm gonna make sure my fabric is out of the way, and it is, so I'm not gonna be sewing over the other side. Next up, let's talk a little bit about our design and our thread choice. Like I mentioned before, for your sashes, you're most likely gonna stick to lighter designs, lower stitch count designs, not anything too complex. Lettering, for instance, is fine. Remember, you don't wanna have anything too complex because this material is prone to puckering. So your fabric is just gonna kind of bunch up. So to avoid that, kind of stick to lettering, stick to something that's not too detailed. Next up, let's talk a little bit about thread choice before we get started. Now, I'm using two types of thread. I'm using like a kind of metallic polyester thread that's not really a metallic because it's not like that foily metallic that you have problems with. And this actually shows up really nice, and it's kind of easier to stitch with than your regular metallic is. And then I'm also using my regular metallic threads that do require a little bit more care and observation. So part of my design, well, most of my design is going to be my silver thread, and then the little crown at the end is going to be the metallic thread. Now, for the needle that you are using your metallic thread, I do recommend using a larger needle. You can use a size 80-12 needle to kind of help reduce the tension and the stress of the thread in the needle, because this is a thicker thread. So because the thread is a little bit thicker, you want to kind of reduce that tension and help the thread pass through the needle's eye a little bit more smoothly. Also, when you're running your metallic, you're going to want to reduce the tension a little bit because, like I said before, this is a more coarse thread. So you just want to make sure that everything is passing through smoothly so you don't get any shredding or thread breaks. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and press start, and we're going to see how this design turns out. Alright guys, so here is the finished product. What do you guys think? Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you liked this video, please make sure to hit the thumbs up button below and to subscribe to our channel. And I also want to take the time to invite you guys to our Facebook group, Embroidery and Custom Apparel Mastery. In there, you will chat with me and thousands of other embroiderers. You can ask us any questions that you have, or you can share any tips of your own. So go ahead, don't forget to join the group. I have linked it below in the description. And one last thing before we go, I want to encourage you guys to sign up for our newsletter, because you will get our videos and different content mailed to you directly, so you won't miss a thing. All right, guys, thank you again for watching. I'll see you back here next time. Bye.